Wagwan. Good morning, good night, welcome back. And if you're listening for the first time, welcome to what is now episode 11 of The Real Situation, where we give you a taste of Jamaican politics. In this series, we're focusing on Jamaica's journey to becoming a republic. I'm your host, Melanie Byfield, and we're in election mode. There's a by-election that's taking place September 30th. To fill the vacancy in South St. Ann Northeast. How did it become vacant? Marcia Smith, the JLP MP, resigned, and there are 3 people who are bidding for that seat right now. Matthew Samuda, the JLP, Chase Neal of the UIC, and an independent candidate, David Anderson. There's also, of course, the general election that has to be called before September next year. So with this constitutional reform going on, this could very well be the last general election where Jamaica's a constitutional monarchy. Jamaica could well be a constitutional republic at the next general election. So what would that look like? That means that the monarchy would have gone and there would have been brought forward a Jamaican head of state, right? And that Jamaican head of state, the CRC have proposed that it should be a president. So what part of the CRC report does that come in? It's under Section 4. And what they're proposing is not a ceremonial only president. It's a quasi ceremonial president, right? So it's the duties of that president are actually likened to what the Governor General does now. Pretty much. So, replacement of the monarchy with a republic. The report says 4.1 is the removal of the British monarch as head of state and as part of the parliament. But here's the issue. The Jamaican governance system of government is a parliament, right? Which is the the British governing system is made up of the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary. Right, the monarch would be removed as the head of state. With regards to the legislature, that's the Parliament, the Senate, and the monarch who would be removed. And then the judiciary is where the issue comes in, because Jamaica's final court of appeal is the Privy Council. So the monarch would be removed from those 3 critical areas, only 2 of them. And obviously that's where the problem is, where the PNP feel that Jamaica should be fully decolonised and replace the Privy Council with the Caribbean Court of Justice. So, the reasoning behind the removal of the monarchy, Section 4.1.1 says it's no longer considered appropriate for Jamaica's form of government to be a constitutional monarchy where our sovereign is the King of England. And obviously it's not new. This is not the first time that Jamaica is trying to get rid of the monarchy. Michael Manley was the first Jamaican Prime Minister to support Jamaica becoming a republic. That was in 1975. In 77, he announced that Jamaica would become a republic by 1981, but of course we know that didn't happen. And there have been subsequent attempts, and here we are in 2024, still trying. So, where's the real problem? Section 4.1.3. Here's where the problem is. This section says that Jamaica's head of state should not be a hereditary monarch, right? But instead one chosen by process. Now, this process is basically what we're going to be talking about, because there's an issue with this process. When you're thinking about this process, I also want you to bear in mind that this report basically says, who do we want as a president? He is the type of guy we want as a president. We want him, somebody who is against partisanship, right? So you're not for any party in particular. They should be a symbol of national identity, a symbol of national unity, and a neutral arbiter. They're neutral. Right? So, why do I say that that process is an issue? Well, here's the process. So, in order to appoint a president, the CRC recommends that, and this is in section 4.3.2, the CRC recommends that the selection of the prospective president be done through a two-stage process. So stage one would be nomination. The nomination is to be done by the Prime Minister after consulting with the Leader of the Opposition with a view to arriving at consensus. Right? Confirmation is to be done by Parliament in a joint sitting of both houses, where each house votes separately by secret ballot. The vote required to confirm the nominee is an affirmative vote of 2/3 majority of each house. So the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition get together, they pick someone, they agree, then it goes to be confirmed by both houses with a 2/3 majority, meaning that there has to be cooperation from the opposition, right? 4.3.3 goes on to say the CRC further recommends as an exception that where there is no consensus between the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition, each one should be empowered to make a separate nomination for confirmation by the Parliament in a joint sitting of both houses, where each house votes separately by secret ballot. However, instead of an affirmative vote of 2/3, the successful nominee would in this case be confirmed on the vote of the absolute majority of each house. Right? Just a simple majority. So, 4.3.4 goes on to give the reason why, if the Prime Minister and the opposition can't reach agreement, it then can just revert to a simple majority. This exception, which allows for separate nominations and confirmation without a supermajority vote, takes into account political realities in our democratic system of governance. While it makes an important concession, it also provides a solution through the application of the majority rule to a problem where gridlock exists. What's this guy going to be doing again? Because this guy had one serious job. He appoints officials leading the country, right? Chief Justice, President of the Court of Appeal, Ministers of State, Judges of the Court of Appeal, the DPP. So there's a lot of criticism. There's a lot of criticism. What did Bruce Golding say about it? Bruce Golding said, if I have the majority in both houses, and I know that if we reach a deadlock, my majority will prevail. There's no inducement for me to try and arrive at consensus. I just string it out And then when we can't agree, I have my way. That's pretty much it, right? PJ, what did PJ say? PJ said this two-tier system that's being proposed in order to appoint a president gives him great alarm. PJ says in Barbados it's done by the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition. Right? If you go by that position, you not only get 2/3, you get unanimity. He said there actually should be, there needs to be forceful consensus. Right? You can't afford gridlock in this. Lock them up. And don't let them out until you've got a nomination. Then you can let the smoke out of the chimney. We have elected a new head of state. So Golden's not impressed. Patterson's alarmed. Professor Canute Thompson. He is a professor of educational policy planning and leadership at UWI and a social activist. And he wrote an article called An Analysis of the Report of Jamaica's Constitutional Reform Committee. Reform or Realpolitik. I captured a little section out of that report called The Selection of the President. And basically Professor Thompson is saying, and I quote, "In my view, this is a real trick." He goes on to say, a prime minister could easily recommend somebody he knows won't be acceptable to the opposition and force the vote and therefore get his way. This mechanism is wholly ill-advised and should be rejected. The professor goes on to say, my question to opposition leader Mark Golden would be, if you were prime minister, would you object to this proposal? And also the question to Andrew Holness, if you were in opposition, would you advance this mechanism for the selection of a president? He says that whatever their answers would be, he suggests it's a bad policy and it will only serve to further divide the society at a time when we're supposed to be seeking unity and healing. So, as we know, that question has actually been put to the PNP, right? Because they responded, particularly with regards to that proposal to appoint a president. They did respond to that, and the response was as follows. They do not agree. They believe it incentivizes the Prime Minister to select somebody who's perceived as favouring their party and therefore wouldn't be politically neutral. So what have the public been saying about this? July 25th, 2024, that was the town hall at Emancipation Park, right in Kingston. And Peter Townsend from the National Democratic Movement referenced an RJR Don Anderson poll where 79% of the public actually want a directly elected president, not even the type of president that the CRC has put forward and is recommending. The UIC actually want the executive president system like the United States. They want a nationally elected president. They want 3 vice presidents, 1 for each county in Jamaica, who would be elected by the constituents of that county. Cujo no one, no head of state at all. Cujo's like, no, don't need somebody, as he calls it, rubber stamping, and believes that there should be a prime minister and a deputy prime minister. No head of state. So what do the public want? Are they being asked? There's an article by Rosalie Hamilton, dated May 26, 2024 on the Gleaner, and it's called Constitutional Reform, a deeper look at the process which she believes is a flawed process. And one of the first reasons she gives, for this process being so flawed, is that there was a firestorm of public criticism, starting with public engagement, right? People really aren't being engaged the way they should in this whole process. She goes on to say, and I quote, "The real flaw is that from inception, the constitutional reform process was never conceived as a process guided by the well-established democratic principle that a constitution is not the act of a government, but of a people constituting a government." My friends, yes, the tire is still flat. But that process to bring in a president, it provoked a whole bunch of resisting against the system. Actually, what the CRC are proposing, light up PJ. PJ also said that proposal is absolutely unacceptable, must be vehemently resisted, and would totally destroy the purpose, the intent, and the legitimacy of a head of state. We're going to talk more about the president in the coming weeks, and I really do hope that you're continuing to enjoy this journey. I hope you're finding it educational, hope you're finding it useful, and I'm looking forward to us continuing to travel together on this road to becoming a republic, truly independent and sovereign together. I'm going to leave with some words of Rosalie Hamilton. To be meaningful, the Jamaican Constitution must become the people's document, and the process of constitutional reform must become a people-driven process, not a top-down, politically driven process. It's not too late. We can do it. You can find this podcast on Buzzsprout, Spotify, Podcast Index, Deezer, Podcast Addict, Apple, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and YouTube. And of course, if you want to reason about anything, you can email me on atasteofja@outlook.com. Till the next time, thank you for supporting this podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and like on YouTube. Please share it with your friends and family. And again, I thank you for taking the time to listen. One love.